Have you ever wondered what would happen if a regular human joined a school full of aliens to train in the toughest combat courses in the galaxy? Imagine being surrounded by strange creatures from all over the universe, all scared of you, because on Earth, we're used to challenges they could never handle. This is the story of Jack, a guy from Earth who finds himself in a place where everything is dangerous, but to him, it feels easy. How will the aliens react? And will Jack survive, or will the galaxy survive him? Stay with me, because what happens next is going to be wild. HFY adjusted his tentacles nervously as he floated into the classroom. Today was going to be interesting. For the first time in the Galactic Federation's history, a human, a bona fide Deathworlder, was joining the Advanced Combat Training course at the prestigious Intergalactic Academy of Peacekeeping. As the lead instructor, HFY had seen it all, or so he thought. He had trained the fiercest Sir Blackened warriors, the most cunning Kwai US strategists, and even a Flufflepuff. Don't let the name fool you. Those things are vicious when they're hungry. But a human, that was a whole new level of what the quark are we getting ourselves into. The classroom buzzed with a mixture of excitement and terror. Students from 100 different species whispered among themselves, their appendages twitching in anticipation. Some had extra appendages sprouting just for the occasion. Evolution works in mysterious ways when you're scared. "Settle down, class," HFY gurgled, his vocal sacs inflating to project his voice. "Today we have a special guest." He paused for dramatic effect, secretly hoping the human had gotten lost in a 7-dimensional cafeteria. No such luck. The door slid open with a hiss, and in walked, no, sauntered, the human. He was tall by galactic standards, which meant he was absolutely titanic to most of the class. His skin wasn't covered in protective scales, venomous barbs, or even a decent layer of slime. How did this species survive? The human grinned, showing off a row of disturbingly white, flat teeth. Several students instinctively activated their camouflage mechanisms. "Hey folks, name's Jack Thompson. Nice to meet ya." The human's voice boomed through the room, causing a sensitive sound receptor alien in the back to faint dramatically. HFY cleared his throat, or the equivalent. "Yes, well, welcome, Mr. Thompson. We're honored to have a representative from Earth join our esteemed—" "Call me Jack," the human interrupted, still grinning like he just won the galactic lottery. "Mr. Thompson's my dad, and last I checked, he wasn't the one who signed up for ass-kicking 1001. A collective gasp rippled through the classroom. Did this Deathworlder just make a joke about the most grueling, soul-crushing, tentacle-twisting combat course in the known universe? HFY's color-shifting skin betrayed his shock, cycling through a rainbow of confused pastels. "I see. Well, Jack, perhaps you'd like to introduce yourself to the class. Tell us about your combat experience on your homeworld." Jack shrugged, a motion that sent several nearby aliens ducking for cover. Not much to tell, really. Did a stint in the Marines, then worked as a bouncer at a bar in New Jersey. Figure that's gotta count for something, right? The instructor's eye stalks bulged. You were a warrior on your world." "Nah, just a regular job. Kept the riffraff out, broke up a few fights, nothing special." A tentative appendage rose from the middle of the class. It belonged to Gore-Pazer, a gelatinous being known for its encyclopedic knowledge of galactic warfare. "Excuse me, honored Deathworlder," it bubbled nervously, "but are you saying that physical combat is common on your planet?" Jack scratched his head, a motion that several students mistook for some kind of deadly ritual. "I mean, yeah, kids roughhouse on playgrounds. We've got sports like boxing and MMA, and sometimes drunk guys just want to prove who's got the bigger." He caught himself, remembering his audience. Who's tougher? The class erupted into chaos. Telepathic species were broadcasting pure panic, bioluminescent aliens were flashing SOS signals, and one poor soul had stress molted all over his desk. Zix CLA, desperately trying to regain control, shouted over the dying. "Silence, mister. I mean, Jack, surely you understand that this course is designed to push even the most hardened warriors to their limits." Jack's eyebrows shot up. "Oh yeah, cool. So what kind of stuff do we do? Obstacle courses, survival training. Booed, do we get to blow stuff up?" The instructor's cover had settled on a queasy green. We start with the asteroid field of doom." "Sounds fun," Jack said, his enthusiasm clearly unnerving everyone within a 10-foot radius. Then the plasma pit crawl. "Sweet. Always wanted to try lava swimming," followed by the neutron star weightlifting challenge. "Hell yeah, gonna get swole in 0G." With each deadly trial Zix CLA listed, Jack's excitement grew, and the class's terror intensified. By the time the instructor mentioned the Supernova Surf final exam, 3 students had requested immediate transfer to the underwater basket weaving department. "All right, class," Zix CLA said, his voice shaking only slightly. "Let's begin with a simple warm-up. Everyone please proceed to the gravity crush chamber for some light calisthenics." The students filed out, eyeing Jack warily as they passed. The human fell in line, whistling a jaunty tune that sounded suspiciously like "Another One Bites the Dust." As they entered the chamber, a massive room with gravity plates that could simulate everything from 0G to the crushing force of a gas giant, Zix CLA allowed himself a small, smug smile. This would show the cocky human what real galactic combat training was all about. "We'll start at 3G, the instructor announced. "This is roughly 3 times the gravity of an average habitable planet. Please perform basic movement exercises until you can no longer." "Ah, teach," Jack interrupted, jogging in place. "I think your gravity doohickey is broken. This feels pretty normal to me." Zix CLA's smug smile evaporated faster than water on a desert planet. What? That's impossible. Computer, confirm gravity level." A pleasant AI voice responded. "Current gravity level is 3.02 standard Gs." "Ha," Jack said, now doing jumping jacks. "Guess Earth's just built different. This is like what we'd feel on a good leg day at the gym." The rest of the class, meanwhile, was plastered to the floor, their various appendages quivering with the effort to remain upright. Gore Pazer had flattened into a pancake, oozing slowly towards the exit. "Perhaps," Zix CLA's voice cracked. He cleared his throat and tried again. "Perhaps we should increase the difficulty. Computer, set gravity to 10G." The change was immediate. The floor groaned under the intense gravitational pull. Most of the students were now completely immobile, their bodies compressed into the unyielding metal beneath them. Zix CLA himself was straining to keep his eye stalks from collapsing into his head. And Jack was doing push-ups. 1, 2, 3. The human counted off, his voice only slightly strained. "Come on, guys. No pain, no gain, am I right?" A muffled scream came from somewhere in the pile of flattened aliens. Okay, Jack chuckled, standing up with only a minor grunt of effort. "Maybe we should dial it back a notch. Don't want anyone to pull a tentacle or rupture a slime gland on the first day." Zix CLA, his pride as bruised as his compressed body, managed to gasp out, "Computer, restore normal gravity." As the crushing force lifted, the class collectively groaned in relief. Several students immediately engaged their species' equivalent of vomiting, filling the air with a symphony of retching sounds and exotic odors. Jack, meanwhile, was stretching casually. "So, what's next? That was a nice warm-up, but when do we get to the real stuff?" Zix CLA stared at the human, his mind reeling. This was supposed to be the most grueling challenge in the known galaxy, and this Deathworlder was treating it like a light job in the park. He had to regain control of the situation to prove that the Intergalactic Academy's training was no joke. Right, the instructor said, pulling himself together. Let's move on to the plasma pit crawl. Follow me, class. Those of you who can still move, that is. The procession to the next training area looked more like a survivor march from some great calamity. Students limped, oozed, and in some cases were carried by their classmates. Jack brought up the rear, helpfully scooping up Zorpazorp, who was still too flattened to move under his own power. Here we are, Zix CLA announced as they entered a vast chamber dominated by a roiling sea of superheated plasma. Floating platforms of heat-resistant material dotted the surface, creating a treacherous path across the deadly liquid. The challenge is simple: cross the pit without falling in. The plasma is hot enough to vaporize most known forms of matter instantly. He turned to Jack, expecting, hoping really, to see some flicker of concern on the human's face. Instead, he found the Deathworlder grinning like a lunatic. "Awesome," Jack exclaimed. "It's like the floor is lava, but for real. Used to play that all the time as a kid." Zix CLA's eye stalks drooped in defeat. You played games involving lava as a child." "Well, not real lava," Jack clarified, much to the relief of his classmates. "Just pretend, you know. Jump from couch to chair. Don't touch the floor. No? Just an earth thing." "All right then." The instructor sighed. "Very well. Who would like to demonstrate the proper technique for?" Before he could finish, Jack had already taken a running leap onto the first platform. The class watched in horror and fascination as the human bounded from one floating island to another, his movements a blend of parkour, gymnastics, and what looked suspiciously like dance moves from something called Fortnite. "Woohoo!" Jack shouted as he flipped over a particularly wide gap. "This is better than that time I did the hot coal walk at a Tommy Robbins seminar." The rest of the class huddled at the edge of the pit, their various sensory organs wide with disbelief. Even Zix CLA found himself slack-tentacled at the display. As Jack neared the other side, a jet of plasma suddenly erupted in his path. The class held their breath, or equivalent gas exchange processes, certain they were about to witness the demise of humanity's first intergalactic student. But Jack, displaying reflexes that would make a quantum cat jealous, twisted in midair, narrowly avoiding the searing liquid. He landed on the final platform with a triumphant tada, and a pose that wouldn't have looked out of place in a cheesy action movie. Silence fell over the chamber, broken only by the bubbling of the plasma and the faint sound of gore stress fermenting. Jack jogged back across the pit, because of course he did, and rejoined his stunned classmates. "So, do I get extra credit for style points?" Zix CLA's colour-shifting skin had given up entirely, settling on a bland beige of utter bewilderment. We've never had anyone complete the course on their first try." "Really?" Jack looked genuinely surprised. "But it's just like a big game of hopscotch. You guys do have hopscotch out here in space, right? No? Man, we got to introduce some Earth games to the galaxy. You'd love it." The instructor, realizing he was rapidly losing control of both the class and his own sanity, decided to pull out the big guns. "Right, well, since you found that so easy, perhaps we should move on to the final exam." A chorus of protesting gurgles, chirps, and psychic wails rose from the students. Now, Zix CLA said, a manic gleam in his eye stalks. "I'm sure if our human friend here can handle it, the rest of you will do just fine. Follow me to the supernova simulator." As they trudged, or, in Jack's case, bounced, to the next challenge, the human fell in step beside Gora. "So," Jack said conversationally, "what's the deal with this supernova thing?" Sounds pretty rad. Gore Pazer burbled nervously. It's the most terrifying experience in the known universe. You must navigate through the outer layers of an exploding star, avoiding radiation, shock waves, and gravitational anomalies. Many students don't even attempt it until their final year. Jack nodded thoughtfully. Cool. Kinda like that time I went through a car wash with the windows down. Should be fun. Gorer, unsure whether to laugh, dissolve into a puddle of existential dread, or both, settled for a non-committal gurgle. They arrived at a massive spherical chamber, its walls lined with technology so advanced it might as well have been magicked to most of the galaxy's civilizations. In the center floated a miniature star, pulsing ominously. Zix CLA, who had clearly reached the nothing matters anymore stage of his mental breakdown, explained the challenge with unnerving calm. You will enter protective pods and be miniaturized to subatomic scale. Then you must navigate through the layers of the star as it goes supernova, collecting data packets along the way. Any questions? The class was oddly silent, most students having resigned themselves to their fate or entered a state of catatonic terror. Jack raised his hand. Yeah, quick question. Is this a timed event? 'Cause I'm getting kind of hungry, and I was hoping we'd break for lunch soon. Zix CLA stared at the human for a long moment before bursting into hysterical laughter. The rest of the class joined in, their fear transforming into a kind of giddy delirium. Even Gorer was vibrating at a frequency that could charitably be called chuckling. As the laughter died down, Zix CLA wiped a tear-like secretion from his eye stalk. You know what? Why not? Let's see how quickly you can complete this mild exercise, shall we? The next few minutes were a blur of activity as the students were loaded into their protective pods and shrunk down to quantum scale. They found themselves floating in the corona of the miniature star, its surface roiling with plasma flares and magnetic storms. Begin, Zix CLA's voice boomed through their comms. What followed was perhaps the most ludicrous display of human adaptability the galaxy had ever witnessed. While most students cautiously navigated the star's outer layers, Jack barrel rolled through solar flares, surfed on magnetic field lines, and at one point used a neutrino burst as an improvised slingshot. Woohoo! Jack's voice crackled over the comms. This is better than that VR roller coaster I tried at Dave & Buster's. The other students watched in awe as the human's pod darted and weaved through the increasingly chaotic environment. As the star began its final collapse, Jack's movements became even more erratic and impossibly more effective. Is he humming the theme from Mission Impossible? Xorer bubbled incredulously. Indeed, Jack's off-key rendition of the iconic tune provided a surreal soundtrack to his death-defying maneuvers. As the star's core reached critical mass, the human executed a series of moves that defied both physics and common sense, emerging from the apocalyptic explosion with all data packets collected and his pod barely scratched. The simulation ended, and the pods were returned to normal size. As the hatch to Jack's pod opened, the human stepped out, stretching casually as if he'd just finished a mildly interesting TV show. Well, that was a hoot and a half, Jack explained, grinning from ear to ear. Do we get to do that again? Or is there, like, an extra credit version with black holes or something? The rest of the class stumbled out of their pods in various states of distress. Gore Pazer had to be poured out of his, the gelatinous alien having liquefied from sheer terror. Zix CLA floated in place, his tentacles limp, eye stalks unfocused, staring into the middle distance as if questioning every life choice that had led him to this moment. But you, the instructor stammered, his usual eloquence abandoned in the face of Jack's impossible feat. How did you? The Zorian battle meditation masters take decades to master that course. Jack shrugged, a motion that by now had half the class flinching involuntarily. Dunno, teach. Just seemed like a mashup of asteroids and that old game Descent, with a little bullet hell thrown in for spice. Pretty fun, actually. A small alien with far too many eyes and not nearly enough limbs hesitantly raised an appendage. Excuse me, terrifying Deathworlder Jack, but what manner of hellscape must your homeworld be to produce beings capable of such? Awesomeness, Jack supplied helpfully. Nightmarish resilience, the alien finished, shuddering. Jack chuckled, oblivious to the existential crisis he was inducing in his classmates. Earth's not so bad. I mean, sure, we've got earthquakes, volcanoes, hurricanes, and that one time I got chased by a moose in Alaska, but it's home, The class collectively took a step back, their various appendages raised in defensive postures. Even Gorer, who had mostly resolidified, wobbled anxiously. Zik CLA, finally snapping out of his stupor, cleared his throat, or the equivalent. Well, Mr. Thompson, Jack, I must say, your performance today has been unprecedented. Thanks, Teach, Jack beamed. So, what's our grade? Did I pass? The instructor's colour-shifting skin cycled through a series of confused patterns before settling on a defeated pale blue. Pass? Pass? Jack, you've just shattered every record in the history of the Intergalactic Academy. There isn't even a grading scale for what you've accomplished. Jack's face fell slightly. Oh, so no pass. Zik CLA's eye stalks bulged in disbelief. No, you misunderstand. You haven't just passed. You've graduated. Completed the entire advanced combat training course in a single day. It's never been done before. A murmur of awe rippled through the class, punctuated by the sound of one student stress molting again. Oh, neat, Jack said, his enthusiasm returning full force. So, what's next? You got any ultra-advanced combat training? Extreme Warfare 2.0. Ooh, how about Galactic Special Forces? The instructor's tentacles went limp. There is nothing beyond this. You've reached the pinnacle of combat training in a known universe. Jack's brow furrowed in confusion. Seriously, but we just did some calisthenics, hopscotch, and a funky VR game. When do we get to the real training? The class erupted into chaos once more. Several students began drafting formal requests to reclassify humans as a Class X hyperlethal species. Gorer started stress fermenting again, filling the air with the scent of alien moonshine. Zik CLA, realizing he was moments away from losing control entirely, made a snap decision. Attention class. Due to unforeseen circumstances, today's session is hereby concluded. Please proceed to the debriefing room for mandatory psychological counseling and species-appropriate comfort snacks. As the shell-shocked students filed out, Jack approached the instructor, still looking puzzled. Hey, Teach, I didn't mean to cause any trouble. It's just, well, this all seemed pretty tame compared to some of the stuff we do back on Earth for fun. You ever heard of Parker? Or maybe ultramarathons? Zik CLA's eye stalks swiveled to face Jack, a mixture of fear and fascination evident in his gaze. Jack, I believe we may need to reassess our understanding of your species. Perhaps you'd be willing to assist in designing some new training protocols. Jack's face lit up. Sure thing. I've got tons of ideas. Ever tried combining zero-G paintball with laser tag? Or how about underwater chess boxing? Oh, I know. We could set up an obstacle course inside an active volcano. That'd be a real challenge, right? The instructor's cover drained to a pale, almost translucent shade. I think we may need to consult the Galactic Ethics Committee first, and possibly alert the Intergalactic Hazard Prevention Bureau. Oh, you're no fun, Jack pouted. But hey, if that's too much, we could always start small. How about we introduce you guys to a little Earth pastime called extreme ironing? Trust me, it's not as boring as it sounds. As Jack enthusiastically described the art of pressing clothes in ridiculously dangerous locations, ZXCLA found himself wondering if perhaps the universe wasn't quite ready for humanity after all. One thing was certain: the next faculty meeting was going to be very, very interesting. Meanwhile, in the debriefing room, a group of shell-shocked alien students huddled together, sipping on their species-appropriate comfort beverages and trying to come to terms with what they'd just witnessed. Did you see how you moved through that plasma?" whispered Quatu, its feeler still singed from the attempt. "Forget the plasma," gurgled Gorpazer, who had finally stopped fermenting. He called a supernova fun. Fun? My great-great-grandfather's home star went supernova, and we're still filling out the insurance paperwork. Azarian with too many limbs, or was it the other way around? Chittered nervously. "I've decided to change my major. Perhaps theoretical quantum knitting would be less hazardous to my health." "Good call," agreed a sentient cloud of ionized gas. "I'm thinking of transferring to the School of Interpretive Ionic Dance myself. It seems safer." As the aliens commiserated, trading horror stories and career change plans, a thought began to percolate through their collective consciousness. If this was just one human, just a sample of what Earth could produce, what would happen when the rest of humanity joined the galactic community? The universe, they realized, was in for one hell of a wake-up call. Back in the training area, Jack was still chattering away to an increasingly pale ZXCLA about the joys of free solo climbing, wingsuit flying, and something terrifyingly called volcano boarding. "And then you just slide down the active volcano on a piece of plywood," Jack finished, gesticulating wildly. "It's a real blast. Get it? Because volcanoes blast." "No," tough crowd. ZXCLA, who had long since passed his species' capacity for shock, simply nodded numbly. "Yes, very amusing, Jack. I have to ask, why? Why do humans engage in such extreme activities?" Jack pondered this for a moment, scratching his chin thoughtfully. "Dunno, Teach. I guess we just like pushing our limits, you know. Plus, it's a real adrenaline rush." Adrenaline. ZXCLA's eye stalks perked up with scientific curiosity. Is this some sort of performance-enhancing substance? Jack laughed, a sound that sent a nearby cleaning droid scurrying for cover. "Nah, it's just a hormone our bodies produce when we're excited or in danger. Makes us stronger, faster, more alert. It's pretty cool." The instructor's color shifted to a pale green of dawning horror. "Are you saying your bodies automatically enhance your abilities in response to threats?" "Yeah, pretty much," Jack nodded. "It's like having a built-in turbo boost. Comes in handy when you're, say, running from a bear or trying to lift a car off someone." ZXCLA's tentacles went limp. "Great Galactic Core, you're all combat-evolved berserkers." "Oh, you say the sweetest things, Teach," Jack grinned, completely missing the existential dread in the alien's voice. "So, about that extreme ironing course." As Jack continued to regale the shell-shocked instructor with tales of human leisure activities, news of the day's events began to spread through the Intergalactic Academy. By dinner time, the cafeteria was abuzz with rumors, each more outlandish than the last. "I heard the human drank a cup of pure antimatter for breakfast." "Well, I heard he arm-wrestled a black hole, and won." "That's nothing. My roommate's cousin's friend said the human plans to redesign the entire combat course to include something called Australian wildlife." In the faculty lounge, a hastily convened emergency meeting was underway. Professors from various departments huddled around a holo display, watching footage of Jack's performance in the supernova simulator. "It's unprecedented," muttered the head of astrophysics, her tentacles twisting into knots. He manipulated gravitational fields instinctively, without any formal training in hyperdimensional calculus. "Forget the physics," growled the xenobiology professor, his scales rattling with agitation. How is his body even capable of withstanding such forces? We need to study this specimen immediately. The Dean of the Academy, an ancient and wise being composed entirely of psionic energy, pulsed thoughtfully. Perhaps we have been too hasty in our judgment of the human species. It seems we may have much to learn from them. A chorus of alarmed squeaks, chirps, and psychic protests filled the room. "Learn from them," sputtered the ethics professor, his eye stalks quivering indignantly. "They're savages. Berserkers. Did you hear about their so-called sports? They voluntarily come cuss each other for entertainment." The Dean's energy field flickered with what might have been amusement. And yet they have achieved faster-than-light travel, colonized multiple worlds, and now stand poised to join the galactic community. Perhaps it is we who have been too complacent in our evolution. A thoughtful silence fell over the room, broken only by the occasional nervous bubbling of the liquid dynamics professor. Meanwhile, blissfully unaware of the paradigm shift he was causing, Jack had made his way to the cafeteria. He stood before the food synthesizer, scratching his head in confusion. Excuse me," he called out to a passing staff member, a being that looked like a cross between a jellyfish and a supercomputer. "Do you guys have anything, spicy? Or maybe some good old-fashioned protein? A guy could use a burger after all that working out." The staff member's bioluminescent displays flickered in patterns of confusion and alarm. "Spicy? Protein? I'm afraid I don't understand. Our nutrient pastes are perfectly calibrated to provide optimal sustenance for all known sentient species." Jack sighed, eyeing the various tubes of colourful goo with trepidation. "Right, nutrient paste. Yum. Say, you wouldn't happen to have a grill around here, would you? And maybe some beef? I make a mean barbecue." The word barbecue echoed through the cafeteria, causing several herbivorous species to blanch and a few carnivorous ones to perk up with interest. As Jack attempted to explain the finer points of Texas-style brisket to an increasingly bewildered cafeteria staff, a small group of braver students cautiously approached him. "Excuse me, terrifying Deathworlder Jack," squeaked a diminutive alien with iridescent fur. "We were wondering, what's Earth really like? Is it true that your oceans are made of acid and your air is mostly fire?" Jack blinked in surprise, then burst out laughing. "What? No, you've got it all wrong. Earth's great. We've got mountains, forests, beaches. Sure, there's the occasional natural disaster, but it's mostly pretty chill." The alien students exchanged skeptical glances. But how do you survive without protective exoskeletons or built-in force fields?" one asked. "Or without the ability to phase shift through solid matter," added another. "Or without psychic deflector shields," chimed in a third. Jack shrugged, a motion that by now only caused minor flinching among his audience. "Dunno, guys, we just do, I guess. Hey, tell you what, why don't you all come visit Earth sometime? I'll show you around. Introduce you to some real Earth cuisine. Ever had a chili dog or deep-fried Oreos?" The alien's expressions ranged from intrigued to terrified, but there was a new emotion creeping in as well: curiosity. As Jack regaled his new friends with tales of Earth's wonders and terrors, often the same things depending on your perspective, news of the humans' exploits continued to spread. By the end of the day, the Intergalactic Academy of Peacekeeping found itself at the center of a galactic controversy. Across the universe, beings of all shapes, sizes, and states of matter debated the implications of humanity's emergence onto the cosmic stage. Some called for the immediate quarantine of the Death World and its terrifying inhabitants. Others argued for closer study, seeing potential in humanity's unique adaptability and resilience. And in a quiet corner of the Academy's garden, Zik CLA sat alone, staring up at the starry sky. He pondered the events of the day, the challenges ahead, and the strange, wonderful, terrifying species that had turned his world upside down. One thing was certain: the galaxy would never be the same again. And somewhere out there, on a little blue planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star, billions of humans were going about their daily lives, blissfully unaware that they were about to become the most talked-about species in the universe. As for Jack, he was in the Academy's workshop, cobbling together what he claimed would be the galaxy's first Weber grill. Trust me, he grinned at the nervous maintenance droids. Once you've had my famous 5-alarm chili, you'll forget all about nutrient paste. The universe held its breath, equal parts terrified and exhilarated, as humanity prepared to take its first real steps into the galactic community. It was going to be one hell of a ride. Now that you've seen Jack handle the galaxy's toughest combat like it's no big deal, what do you think? Could a regular human really be this powerful? Or is it just that we're more adaptable than we realize? Think about it. How would you do in Jack's shoes? It's crazy to think that humans, in all their simplicity, might just be the most dangerous species out there. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. Who knows what adventures are waiting next? Stay tuned.